This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Brian Heath, CEO of Drivewyze, and Martin Murtland, Vice President of Product, also with Drivewyze. Gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us.
Oh, thanks Jason. Happy to be back on the show.
Yeah, so
great to be here, Jason.
You guys have had a very recent announcement here, just released on Drivewyze Free, a safety-focused solution here that I appreciate you taking the time to dive into, because I think there's a lot here and I want you to walk me through it. So we're going to just kick it off with that. Tell us about Drivewyze Free. What is it? How does it work? And the free, I like the free in the name. I mean, is that fun branding, or is this thing actually free?
That's a great question. So absolutely, yes, free. And we're really excited. So Drivewyze Free is a brand new service. It's a standalone service that Drivewyze has introduced into the marketplace, Jason. And what it does is it delivers these essential in-cab safety alerts to truck drivers where and when they need it across our transportation network. And what we wanted to do was partner with the telematics industry, who are our technology partners, and with government agencies participating in these connected vehicle highway safety programs. Right. And we wanted to bring these sort of essential safety alerts to drivers at no cost. We wanted to make sure that the industry had access to, and they have access to, real-time information that can give a driver a heads up, a chance to proactively respond to what could be a risky event, a risky area on the roadway in front of them. And the app itself, Drivewyze Free, is available to the entire industry. There are no strings attached. It is a free service. It contains some fantastic sort of real-time alerts that have been sponsored by ourselves, Drivewyze, but also by our agency partners. And it's delivered, through our technology partners, our telematics service providers, and their network. And that really what you have is this sort of ecosystem that's come together to to contribute and to give back to drivers, and to give them just, the opportunity to know what's ahead of them on the roadway, and that extra time can make a huge difference on driver behavior and in the ability to avoid crashes.
Certainly, Martin. Anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I'd just summarize, what Brian said. I'd say there's three key components in Drivewyze Free. Firstly, there's the essential in-cab alerts and advisory that Brian talked about. There's then also, the reporting. We try to give data-driven insights to fleets to understand, their performance and what's happening. And then we also give them access to our hub to be able to manage and customize their own access, for their fleet. So yeah, and working with the agency partners, as Brian says, and technology providers, and also third-party data providers as well. So yeah, no, very very excited about its launch, and certainly not a gimmick. It's free and very serious. Trying to deliver on our mission of saving lives and hopefully getting to zero crashes at some point across the nation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a lot going on the roads. As a driver too, you're watching out for things. You try to arm yourself with as much of the safety equipment and solutions as you can, right? Because you're the frontline safety driver there. It's crazy out there at times when you see some of these people in the way. Some of the cars around them are driving in some of the areas. Let's step back for a minute. I do want to just kind of take a deep dive into how this works, how I see it, let's say from the driver point of view and both the fleet manager point of view, how the alerts are generated, what I see, and how that all works. So to start off, you mentioned it's an app, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but I have a telematics provider, probably integrated into my ELD solution. I'm using that for ELD, right? So this is an app that I can pull into that dashboard, right? That's totally free. And then how do I see alerts? Martin, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, no, yes, it's certainly on your ELD provider, but if if you're using your own phone or tablet,
Okay.
it's also available,
Oh, okay.
on Android and iOS. What we've really done is used our our geofence and our infrastructure to be able to connect up risk zones with the in-cab alerts. So really, what happens is when a driver, comes to one of those geofenced risk areas, whether that be a high rollover or a mountain pass, they receive a message along with an audible alert, directly into their ELD or their smartphone or
I
tablet,
see.
that gives them, that very succinct message that there's a high rollover, along with a descriptive icon. And it's very, very, very important, to have that icon in there, and that'll appear on the screen and give them the warning about the risk that's potentially coming up, and then it will disappear off their screen roughly after about 20 seconds. So yeah, no, it's pretty simple for the drivers to use, and we're very pleased about the data that we've found about the impact it actually has on the drivers and their speed, particularly around the high rollover areas, and also enabling them to avoid low bridge strikes and stuff like that.
Sure, sure. Brian, anything to add there?
The most important thing for us was to be able to give access to the application to as many drivers and fleets as possible. So to reduce the friction, the pain points involved in adopting a new technology. So you pointed out, Jason, how it's software based, and that makes a huge difference, because then a fleet or a driver doesn't have to go out and buy any new piece of hardware to implement the solution. Whether they've got an electronic logging device, a telematics device, smartphone, a tablet in their vehicle, they can download the software, or fleets can have the software enabled in those devices already. So you're taking advantage of the fact that there's already equipment inside the trucks, and then to activate the Drivewyze free software, really that occurs at the touch of a button. So you don't have to procure any additional hardware equipment, and just by activating the software, drivers will start receiving these real-time notifications where and when they need it. And it's important because that means what we're really doing is leveraging this ubiquitous connectivity that's out there now, right? So the messages are GPS based. So as Martin talked about, the location of the vehicle and direction of the vehicle will dictate whether you receive any messages. And when you receive a message, it'll be a message that really is intended for that driver of that vehicle that's approaching that risky area. That's important so that you don't end up over messaging drivers. We want to make sure that as a safety and compliance platform, that we really do just limit the messages to these safety critical events, these essential sort of in-cab messages. That means you're not overloading drivers with non-critical messages. You don't want to desensitize drivers, with, for instance, advertising or messages that really don't require some sort of response.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that Drivewyze Free was really focused on the mission of reducing crashes, of reducing injuries, and making sure that we just curated this critical set of real-time messages that would make a difference.
Right, right. Okay, so again, as I'm working through this here on this new announcement, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing, so it's area-based, right? It's going to depend on my location, and then in relation to the information you have on the incidents that happen in those areas. To your point, this isn't like a driver training thing where it's pinging me on my speed or my lane or this or that, right? It's really location-based and area-based, and I'm seeing some head nods there. On the area-based, where does that information come from? How do you know that's a high rollover area, or how do you know that's a low bridge incident, kind of a high incident area for that?
Sure. And maybe Martin and I can do a split duty on this one. I can talk a little bit about the government agency-sponsored alerts, and maybe Martin, you want to take some of the Drivewyze-sponsored alerts.
Sure.
On the agency-sponsored side, we are partnering with transportation agencies, whether that's Department of Transportation, the Transportation Authority, in some cases a toll agency or an enforcement agency like a state police agency, we're partnering with them to collect, this sort of real-time, high-quality data that hasn't been available to drivers before, and we are markedly doing this differently than it's been done in the past. So you can go and you can. This is, remember that Drivewyze itself isn't a navigation app. The alerts that we provide pop up and are oftentimes compatible with your navigation apps, but it's not meant to replace navigation. Mm-hmm. So this is an in-cab notification that takes over the entire screen. It's only there long enough for the driver to be able to understand what the message is, and then it drops back into the background. So when we look at partnering with state agencies, the first thing we do is take a look at what critical real-time information is out there that has a high enough quality that the drivers are going to trust it. They're going to respond to it. So we partnered with state agencies first through what's called the Smart Roadways program, and we give notifications on sudden and unexpected slowdowns. And that's a big deal in the transportation world, right? Because you never know when there's going to be, a traffic queue that pops up in front of you that might be out of view. Trucks are particularly, susceptible, from a safety perspective because they have so much weight, and it takes them so much longer to come to a stop. So if you can give those drivers a heads up on an unexpected or sudden slowdown, it makes a big difference. And that's not information that is available really anywhere today. If you think about it from a notification perspective, right? So you can be using a navigation app and you might have a red line, for instance, that's somewhere in the map. What we don't want to do is take a driver's attention away from the roadway to start studying what icons are on a tiny map. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is make sure that when there is a high-risk situation, let's say a sudden or unexpected slowdown, that notification visually and audibly is brought to the driver's attention so they can respond to it. And you have to partner with departments of transportation or transportation agencies to be able to do that. Those messages, those programs with government agencies will expand to give messages beyond sudden and unexpected slowdowns. They can include, emergency broadcasts. Mm. There are state agencies now that are starting to look at expanding the program to include the notification of a service vehicle that's on the roadway in front of you, or an active work zone. Work zones, commercial vehicles have more than twice, the crash rate inside of work zones, and the impacts, are horrific. So if we can give drivers information about an active work zone, and there's something in particular I want to mention on that. What we're not doing is just going to the 511 systems and collecting a bunch of static information on work zones, for instance. The data has been available for years. The problem has been the data quality. So if you're telling a driver there's a work zone in front of them, and in fact there is nothing occurring on that roadway, that data, that poor data quality impacts the driver, because what they start losing trust in the system.
Right.
And if you're giving them information that's not real time, then they will start ignoring the messages that come from those machines, and then you've lost the opportunity to really impact highway safety. So state agencies engage with us in programs to make sure that we can take high quality, real-time information, critical and essential safety information, deliver it to those drivers where and when they need it. So Drivewyze Free is not advertising for fuel. We're not selling hot dogs on the side of the road. This is information that drivers respect. And it's, interestingly enough, Jason, we took a look at the data over time for drivers that are receiving these essential safety messages and their response rates. So how does a driver respond when you're given this kind of in-cab information? Well, their response rate, and you can measure that, for instance, in how they slow down for an upcoming risk.
Sure.
Their response rate grows with time, which means that, and that only happens when there's trust in the data.
Right.
So when you're providing information that is real, that has high quality to it, then drivers will trust it. Right. And so us, Drivewyze, together with our partners and our state agencies, that's really what we've been focusing on when we say state-sponsored or agency-sponsored alerts, is to make sure that we start to roll out these sets of essential in-cab alerts with an eye on quality, knowing that they'll make a difference. Now, that is by participating state. So this is an emerging program, the Smart Roadways program that state agencies partner with Drivewyze on to to collect this information in the first place, is growing state by state. In some states, it starts along the freight corridors. In other states, you've got a wider deployment on, over the entire transportation network, call it the freight network. We're working with our state partners to continue to expand that network. Our goal is that it covers, the entire continent, and that drivers have access to this information wherever they're driving. And so and for state agencies, it's a little bit of a new world. These are connected vehicles. Right. There's this opportunity for the first time in history to take safety information, reach out and deliver it to a driver where and when they need it. And that hasn't occurred before. Right. So in the past, you'd have a website with 511 information. You might have an overhead gantry system with a dynamic message sign that might give you information. But it was really hard to deliver that information when a driver needed it. And so this new capability, that's available, state agencies are really excited about, being able to extend their highway safety programs into the cabs of vehicles. And so we're partnering with them to do that. On our website, we'll have a map of where the agency-sponsored notifications are being delivered and expanding upon. So pretty excited.
Yeah, very cool. Martin, how about on the Drivewyze side and kind of across the country? How are you doing this?
Yeah, no, on the Drivewyze side, we've had like an extensive library of alerts, both, safety alerts and advisories. But in the past, they've only been available via our premium services. What we're doing with Drivewyze Free is making these available in Drivewyze Free as well. I'll give you an example of some of them. For example, the low bridges. Like in the United States, on average, about 15,000, bridge strikes a year. And what we're looking to do is to try and reduce those number of strikes. We gave nearly 2 million low bridge strikes alerts last year. And also, we've got examples, say Daniel Patterson, from who's Director of Safety at Western Express. When they started using our service, they were, every few weeks they would experience a low bridge strike in New York, which is pretty prevalent. But since starting receiving those alerts, they've nearly eradicated or nullified, the amount of bridge strikes that they've experienced. Likewise, tight curves, high rollover risk areas. We've got those geo-fenced. And what we've found, with our data on those areas that we have the geofence and high rollovers, we found that drivers on average, coming into those, maybe going over the speed limit, maybe over 5 miles per hour over that. But when they get the alert, they're reducing their speed by an average over 7 miles an hour. And that enables them to make that navigation and turn safely. I was sitting at a conference at the beginning of the year talking with a law enforcement officer from Omaha, and he said, they have a really bad bend. Every time there's bad weather, they predict that there's always going to be a crash there. But he said never once has there been a Drivewyze truck, crash there. And what we want to do is enable all trucks to have that sort of safety record, not having those incidents. Likewise, the Steve gradients, working with the states, some of them have said, we've done a great job educating the fleets that are in our own state. We're worried about out of state trucks coming in. And so then, the ability to be able to give those out of state fleets, the local knowledge about what's happening, steep gradients, and things to be aware of. And likewise, parking, the availability of rest areas, or parking rest areas. Something that's always top of the list, and the drivers of their priorities. Being able to let them know where there's parking spaces available at the rest areas. So those sort of things that we think will have a meaningful impact on driver safety, enabling them to get home safely, and also enabling the fleets to show that they care about safety and providing a service to their drivers.
Right. No, I mean, and as you both pointed out here, just awareness of it makes a huge difference. You need time and space to be able to make a move in a truck. Oftentimes that 5 to 10 mile per hour difference makes all the difference, right? Especially in those curves, those rollovers, actually any instance. You mentioned the possibility of just knowing there's an emergency vehicle somewhere up ahead too. You usually only know that kind of when you come up a little hill or you come around the curve and you see the lights, and then you're like, oh, well, I've got to do my best to get over, but so are all the cars behind me trying to get over there in that lane too, right? So even knowing that ahead of time just gives drivers that information to be able to make those changes much more ahead of time, gives them more of that time and space they need. One thing I did want to hit on though, Martin, that you mentioned earlier specifically too, is that reporting and that dashboard, that fleet visibility, right? Brian, you talked a lot about earning that driver trust. How does that translate then to the visibility you give fleet managers, right? The drivers are the ones out there on the road, they're experiencing the technology and earning the trust with it. But for a fleet manager who has implemented this across the fleet, who's trying to encourage drivers to trust it, to use it, does that work the same way with their reporting and what they're able to see then back in the office?
I'll take it. Yeah, no, absolutely. The fleet manager, safety manager, are able to come in and able to look at a report and see the speed and how they're doing, the effectiveness on that across the fleet. They're also able to drill down and be able to look at specific areas and stuff as well. It also gives them the control to be able to manage what the drivers have access to as well, and permission them. So a lot of it is providing the visible proof to the fleet managers, and we also have additional reports that they can request if they want specific information, and we can provide that as well. So yeah, no, it's a key thing for the fleet managers to be able to believe and see the impact. We have the data to back it up, and we make that transparent to the fleets as well.
Very cool, Brian. Any parting thoughts there?
I think just on the topic of data, a lot of folks, they associate, rightfully so, Drivewyze with the way station bypass services, which is where, that was our first commercial service. And so it's important to note that it is a standalone service, Drivewyze Free. So when you're coming up to way stations or inspection sites, we're actually not sharing any data with the enforcement agencies because it is a separate program. And so it's going to understand that the only data that's really being shared is, specifically on those vehicles and driver behavior is back with the fleets who own that data in the first place.
Right. Well, no, and back to it, free service, safety-minded, widely available. No real reason to not check it out, right? Give it a try, see if it works for you. And anything to help reduce those incidents. Gentlemen, I appreciate you taking the time today to talk me through this. I learned a lot. I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon as more of this rolls out.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate talking to you.